Beneath the ocean's surface lies silence, shadows, and teeth. Sharks aren't just predators. They're perfected hunters, striking with speed, precision, and terrifying power. One flicker of motion, one misstep, and the sea turns savage. These encounters, from military dives to sunny coastlines, show how fast awe becomes horror. This video delves into 6 chilling, real-life shark encounters, from leaked Navy footage of a massive great white to a bull shark ambush on a water skier. The waters off Monterey Bay, California, had always held secrets beneath their dark surface. In 2019, the United States Navy's Oceanographic Research Division established a network of underwater sensors along the continental shelf, approximately 47 miles southwest of the coastal city. The sensors were designed to monitor seismic activity and underwater currents as part of a classified deep-sea research program. The location was chosen specifically for its depth variations, ranging from 800 to 2,400 feet, making it an ideal testing ground for advanced maritime technology. Commander Thaddeus Blackwater, a 38-year-old veteran of underwater operations, led the research vessel USS Pelagic on what should have been a standard sensor maintenance run. The crew had performed similar operations dozens of times without incident. Their mission was straightforward: deploy a team of Navy divers to inspect and repair sensors transmitting irregular data for the past 3 weeks. The morning of September 15th dawned clear and calm, with minimal surface chop and excellent underwater visibility extending to nearly 60 feet. Chief Petty Officer Maximilian Cortez, the lead diver, descended with his partner, Second Class Quentin Ashworth, to examine the sensor array Delta 7 at 180 feet on a rocky outcropping. What they discovered would challenge everything marine biologists thought they knew about great white shark populations in North American waters. As Cortez approached the sensor array, he immediately noticed extensive damage to the titanium housing. Deep gouges and puncture marks scarred the metal surface, suggesting an encounter with something possessing tremendous bite force. The sensor's protective arm, designed to withstand extreme ocean conditions and constructed from military-grade materials, had been completely severed. Bite marks on the remaining metal showed tooth impressions that measured significantly larger than any previously recorded great white shark encounters. The spacing between individual tooth marks suggested a jaw span that defied conventional understanding of modern shark anatomy. As Cortez began documenting the damage with his underwater camera, movement in the peripheral darkness caught his attention. What emerged from the murky depths beyond the sensor array was a great white shark of extraordinary proportions. The creature measured what experienced divers later estimated to be over 22 feet long, with a girth that dwarfed any shark either man had encountered in their combined 30 years of diving experience. The massive predator moved with surprising grace for its size, circling the sensor array with apparent curiosity. Its dorsal fin stood nearly 4 feet above its back, while its head appeared disproportionately large even for a shark of such impressive dimensions. Most unsettling were its eyes, which seemed to display an intelligence that made both divers profoundly uncomfortable. Without warning, the giant shark attacked the remaining sensor equipment with savage intensity. Its jaws clamped down on the sensor arm with a crushing force that bent the titanium like aluminum foil. The grinding sound of metal being compressed echoed through the water as the shark thrashed its massive head from side to side, destroying the sensor housing. Under standard Navy protocols, Cortez attempted to document the encounter while maintaining a safe distance. However, the shark seemed to take notice of the diving team's presence. With movements that belied its enormous size, the predator abandoned the mangled sensor and turned its attention toward the 2 men. The shark's approach was both deliberate and terrifying. Rather than the quick, investigative passes typical of great white behavior, this creature moved with obvious predatory intent. Ashworth, who had been maintaining position near the rocky outcropping, found himself directly in the shark's path as it accelerated toward him. The attack was swift and devastating. The shark's massive jaws engulfed Ashworth's left leg up to the knee, its teeth penetrating through his diving suit and into the flesh beneath. The force of the bite was so powerful that it lifted the diver off the seafloor, shaking him like a dog with a toy before releasing him into the water. Blood clouded the water as Ashworth struggled to remain conscious while Cortez immediately activated emergency protocols. Satisfied with its demonstration of dominance, the massive shark retreated into the darker waters beyond the sensor array. However, it remained visible in the distance, continuing to circle the area. The rescue operation that followed showcased the Navy's emergency response training. Within minutes, both divers were aboard the USS Pelagic, with Ashworth receiving immediate medical attention for severe lacerations and puncture wounds to his left leg. Though serious, his injuries were deemed non-life-threatening, largely due to the diving suit's protective layers and the shark's apparent lack of sustained aggressive intent. Multiple underwater cameras captured the incident, providing unprecedented footage of a great white shark displaying size and behavior patterns that challenged existing marine biology assumptions. The video showed clear details of the creature's massive proportions, unusual head structure, and methodical approach to the equipment and the diving team. Marine biologists who later reviewed the footage noted several characteristics reminiscent of prehistoric shark species. The creature's head shape, tooth spacing, and proportions bore striking similarities to paleontological reconstructions of ancient sharks like the Megalodon. However, the Navy maintained that the creature was a modern great white shark of exceptional size. The footage sparked immediate debate within the marine biology community about maximum size potentials for great white sharks, and whether isolated populations might grow significantly larger than previously documented specimens. Some researchers suggested that the deep, nutrient-rich waters off Monterey Bay might support larger predator populations than coastal areas typically encountered by researchers. Following the incident, the Navy implemented new safety protocols for underwater operations in the region and increased monitoring of the area through manned and unmanned surveillance systems. The damaged sensor array was eventually replaced, though subsequent missions reported continued equipment interference and unexplained damage consistent with large predator activity. Ashworth recovered fully from his injuries and returned to active duty, though he requested reassignment to surface operations. The encounter left both divers with a profound respect for the ocean's ability to harbor creatures that challenge human understanding of marine ecosystems. The incident report, initially classified, was later released through Freedom of Information Act requests, bringing public attention to the existence of extraordinarily large predator sharks in North American waters and renewing scientific interest in deepwater shark populations. By 2015, the tropical waters surrounding Réunion Island in the Indian Ocean had earned a sinister reputation among surfers worldwide. Located 450 miles east of Madagascar, this French overseas territory boasted some of the region's most pristine coral reefs and consistent surf breaks. However, beneath the crystalline waters lurked a predator population that had transformed paradise into a hunting ground. The island's unique geography, featuring volcanic drop-offs that plunged thousands of feet into the ocean depths, created perfect conditions for large pelagic species, particularly tiger sharks. On the morning of August 12, 2015, 24-year-old Camille Moreau prepared for what she anticipated would be a peaceful surf session before the typical crowds arrived. Moreau, visiting from mainland France to spend the summer with relatives, had been surfing the break regularly for 3 weeks without incident. She had grown comfortable with the reef's layout and understood the local conditions well enough to recognize optimal surfing times. The dawn session appealed to Moreau because of the solitude it offered. Tourist surfers typically arrived later in the morning, leaving the early hours to experienced locals and visitors who appreciated the tranquil atmosphere. Weather conditions on that particular morning were ideal, with light offshore winds creating clean wave faces and excellent visibility extending beyond the reef break. Local fisherman Auguste Delacroix had positioned himself on the rocky shoreline before sunrise, preparing his nets for the day's work. From his vantage point, he maintained clear sightlines across the entire reef area where Moreau had paddled out. Delacroix later reported that she had positioned herself near the channel where sea turtles frequently pass through during their morning feeding routines. The turtle population around St. Louis had increased significantly in recent years due to conservation efforts, creating an unintended consequence that marine biologists were only beginning to understand. Tiger sharks, apex predators known for their opportunistic feeding behavior, had adapted their hunting patterns to take advantage of the reliable turtle activity in the area. At approximately 7:30 in the morning, Moreau was sitting on her surfboard waiting for the next set when Delacroix observed what he initially thought was a large wave approaching from deeper water. The disturbance in the water proved far more sinister as a massive tiger shark, estimated at over 12 feet in length, launched its attack with devastating precision. The assault occurred with such violence that Delacroix could hear Moreau's scream across the water. The shark had approached from below and behind, using the reef's topography to mask its advance until the final moment. Unlike great whites, Tiger sharks are known for their persistence once they commit to an attack, and this individual demonstrated that characteristic with terrifying effectiveness. Delacroix immediately activated his marine radio, broadcasting distress calls to the harbor authority and local emergency services. However, the distance from shore and the nature of Moreau's injuries made rescue efforts largely symbolic rather than practical. The shark had inflicted massive trauma to both her leg and torso, wounds that proved unsurvivable given the remote location and response time requirements. The attack continued for several minutes as the tiger shark maintained its grip on Moreau, pulling her underwater repeatedly. Delacroix later described the water around the attack site as turning completely red, with debris from both the surfboard and the victim creating a disturbing scene that haunted him for months afterward. Emergency responders arrived within 20 minutes of Delacroix's initial radio call, but by that time, Moreau had already succumbed to her injuries. The rescue team recovered her body approximately 100 meters from the initial attack site, suggesting the shark had moved her a significant distance during the assault. The surfboard, discovered several hours later, washed against the reef and showed clean bite marks that marine experts confirmed belonged to a large tiger shark. The incident reignited long-standing debates about shark management around Reunion Island. Local authorities had implemented various protective measures over the years, including shark nets and increased patrols, but the island's unique marine ecosystem made complete protection virtually impossible. The volcanic topography that created excellent surfing conditions also provided a perfect habitat for large predator species. Moreau's death particularly affected the local surfing community because she had been well-liked and respected during her stay. Her relatives organized a memorial service at the beach where she had learned to surf as a child during previous family visits. The ceremony drew surfers from across the Indian Ocean region, highlighting the tight-knit nature of the international surfing community. Marine biologists extensively studied tiger shark behavior in the St. Louis area following the attack. Their research confirmed that the combination of turtle activity, reef structure, and deep water access created optimal hunting conditions for large tiger sharks. The findings led to modified safety recommendations for surfers, particularly regarding dawn and dusk sessions when turtle activity peaked. The incident also prompted renewed discussion about balancing marine conservation and human safety. Reunion's shark population had recovered significantly following fishing regulations implemented in the 1990s, but the recovery had created new challenges for ocean users. Marine experts emphasized that shark attacks remain statistically rare, but acknowledged that certain locations and conditions elevated risk factors considerably. Delacroix continued fishing in the area, but never forgot the morning when Paradise revealed its deadly nature. His eyewitness account provided crucial details that helped marine biologists understand the attack sequence and contributed to ongoing research into tiger shark behavior patterns around Reunion Island. By 2018, the coastal waters off Recife, Brazil, had earned a notorious reputation as one of the world's most dangerous areas for shark encounters. Located in the northeastern state of Pernambuco, this bustling metropolitan area combined urban development with pristine beaches, creating a deadly confluence of human activity and aggressive shark populations. The city's rapid expansion had dramatically altered the marine ecosystem, with port development and coastal construction disrupting traditional shark migration patterns and feeding areas. The warm, murky waters off Recife provided ideal conditions for bull sharks, apex predators known for their aggressive nature and ability to thrive in saltwater and brackish environments. Unlike other shark species that preferred clear, deep water, bull sharks actively hunted in the turbid shallows where visibility was limited and prey was abundant. The species' territorial behavior and low tolerance for disturbance made them particularly dangerous to humans engaging in water sports. On the afternoon of June 23, 2018, 21-year-old Lucas Ferreira organized a water skiing expedition with his university friends to celebrate the end of the exam period. Ferreira, an engineering student at the Federal University in Pernambuco, was an experienced water skier who had grown up participating in various water sports along the Brazilian coast. His familiarity with local conditions had made him somewhat complacent about the potential dangers lurking beneath the surface. The group had rented a speedboat from a local marina and traveled approximately 2 miles offshore to find calmer waters suitable for skiing. The location they selected was popular among local water sports enthusiasts because it offered protection from the larger swells while maintaining sufficient depth for safe boat operation. However, the area also represented prime bull shark habitat, combining warm water, abundant bait fish, and proximity to the river systems where bull sharks often hunted. Weather conditions were perfect for water skiing, with light winds and calm seas creating ideal surface conditions. The water temperature registered at 82 degrees Fahrenheit, optimal for extended swimming, but also attractive to cold-blooded predators seeking thermal refuges. Visibility beneath the surface was limited to approximately 10 feet due to sediment stirred up by recent coastal storms and ongoing construction projects. Ferreira had completed several successful skiing runs when equipment problems forced an unplanned stop. The ski rope had become tangled in the boat's propeller, requiring manual intervention. During the repair process, Ferreira volunteered to enter the water to untangle the rope from below, a decision that would prove nearly fatal. As Ferreira worked to free the tangled rope, his friends aboard the boat watched for any signs of marine life. However, bull sharks are notorious for their ability to approach prey undetected, using their gray coloration and the murky water to mask their presence until the final moment of attack. The shark that had been tracking the boat's movement struck without warning. The bull shark, estimated at over 9 feet in length and weighing approximately 400 pounds, attacked with the explosive power characteristic of its species. The predator's initial bite targeted Ferreira's left leg just below the knee, its powerful jaws delivering crushing force that immediately fractured bones and severed major blood vessels. The shark's serrated teeth penetrated through muscle and tendon, creating devastating wounds that would require extensive surgical intervention. Ferreira's screams alerted his friends to the attack, but the shark's aggressive behavior complicated rescue efforts. Unlike many species that bite and retreat, bull sharks often maintain their grip on prey while thrashing violently to incapacitate their victims. The attacking shark held Ferreira's leg for several terrifying seconds before releasing him and circling for a potential follow-up attack. The following rescue operation demonstrated the loyalty of friendship and the dangers inherent in shark attack responses. Ferreira's friends, led by his roommate Carlos Mendoza, immediately maneuvered the boat toward the attack site, while one crew member prepared emergency medical supplies. The boat's captain, a local named Roberto Silva, had witnessed shark attacks before and understood the critical importance of speed in such situations. Getting Ferreira aboard the boat proved challenging because the attacking shark circled the area aggressively. Bull sharks are known for their persistence, and this individual showed no signs of abandoning what it perceived as its territory. Silva used the boat's engine noise and movement to discourage the shark, while the crew pulled Ferreira from the water, leaving a trail of blood that attracted the predator's continued attention. The severity of Ferreira's injuries became apparent once he was aboard the boat. The shark's bite had caused massive tissue damage, crushing his lower leg and severing major blood vessels. His friends applied tourniquets and pressure bandages while racing toward shore, maintaining radio contact with emergency medical services who were preparing to receive a shark attack victim. Paramedics met the boat at the marina and immediately transported Ferreira to a hospital, Recife's premier trauma center with extensive experience treating shark attack victims. The medical team, led by Dr. Amanda Carvalho, worked for 6 hours to save Ferreira's leg, but the extent of bone and tissue damage ultimately required amputation below the knee. Though his water skiing career ended permanently, the surgery successfully preserved his life. The incident prompted renewed attention to shark safety measures in Recife's coastal waters. Municipal authorities increased warning signs and implemented stricter guidelines for water sports activities, particularly where bull shark encounters had been documented. Marine biologists emphasized that bull sharks were particularly dangerous because of their unpredictable behavior and tendency to attack in shallow, seemingly safe waters. Ferreira's recovery proved challenging both physically and emotionally. Adapting to life with a prosthetic leg required months of rehabilitation, but his engineering background helped him understand the mechanical aspects of modern prosthetics. He eventually returned to university and completed his degree, though he never again participated in water sports. Marine biologists studying the area were concerned by the attacking shark's persistent behavior following the incident. Witnesses reported that the shark continued to circle the attack site for over an hour after the rescue, suggesting territorial behavior that increased risks for other water users. This observation contributed to research into bull shark behavior patterns and their adaptation to human-modified marine environments. Local fishing communities reported increased shark activity in the weeks following the attack, with several bull sharks being caught in nets set for commercial fish species. Marine experts theorized that the dredging operations at Swaport had created a domino effect, displacing individual sharks and entire populations into new hunting territories. where they encountered human activity more frequently than in their traditional habitats. By 2012, the remote coastline near Albany, Western Australia, represented one of the continent's most pristine and dangerous marine environments. Located approximately 400 kilometers southeast of Perth, this rugged stretch of coast featured a combination of rocky headlands, secluded beaches, and deep water channels that created perfect conditions for great white shark populations. The area's isolation from major population centers meant that emergency services were limited, and beachgoers often found themselves completely self-reliant in crises. The beach where the Singh family spent their weekend was typical of the area's geography. A crescent-shaped bay protected by granite headlands, with clear blue water that masked the dramatic depth changes just offshore. The location's beauty matched its isolation, accessible only by a rough dirt track that wound through dense coastal scrubland. This remoteness appealed to families seeking privacy, but meant that help could be hours away in an emergency. On the morning of March 10, 2012, 38-year-old Michael Singh had loaded his family's four-wheel drive vehicle with camping gear, food, and beach equipment for what was intended to be a relaxing weekend escape from their busy lives in Perth. Singh worked as a civil engineer for a mining company and rarely had opportunities to spend uninterrupted time with his wife, Priya, and their 3 children, aged 6, 9, and 12. The family had discovered this particular beach during a previous camping trip and had returned several times over the years. The Singh family's camping spot was on a bluff overlooking the beach. The bluff provided panoramic views of the coastline and excellent vantage points for monitoring the children's activities. The elevated position also offered protection from coastal winds, which could make beach camping uncomfortable during the region's unpredictable weather patterns. Michael had chosen the location carefully, considering both scenic beauty and practical safety factors. Weather conditions on that particular weekend were exceptional, with calm seas, warm temperatures, and minimal wind, creating ideal conditions for swimming and beach activities. The water temperature registered at approximately 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which is comfortable for extended swimming sessions. Visibility beneath the surface extended to nearly 40 feet, allowing swimmers to see the sandy bottom clearly and spot any approaching marine life. The family had spent the morning exploring tide pools and collecting shells, which kept them in shallow water close to shore. After lunch, the children had been playing with an inflatable beach ball when a gust of wind carried it into deeper water beyond their reach. The ball drifted approximately 50 meters offshore, floating in water shallow enough for an adult to wade through safely. Michael volunteered to retrieve the ball, which seemed reasonable given the calm conditions and the relatively short distance. He waded into the surf wearing only swimming shorts, expecting to grab the ball quickly and return to shore within minutes. The water depth gradually increased, reaching his waist when he approached the floating toy. Local fishermen had been cleaning their catch on the rocky headland earlier that morning, a practice that had inadvertently created a scent trail extending from the rocks into the surrounding waters. Fish blood and offal had been discarded directly into the ocean, creating an attractant for scavenging species, and ultimately, the predators that hunted them. This practice, while traditional among local anglers, had significantly elevated the risk of shark encounters in the immediate area. The great white shark that attacked Michael Singh was later estimated to be over 15 feet long, a massive predator that had likely been drawn to the area by the fish cleaning activities. Great whites can detect blood and other organic compounds in water and track scent trails across considerable distances. The shark had probably been investigating the area for several hours before the Singh family arrived. The attack occurred without warning as Michael reached for the floating ball. The shark struck from below and behind, its massive jaws clamping down on his lower torso with crushing force. The impact lifted him partially out of the water before dragging him beneath the surface in a cloud of blood and churning foam. The attack was both swift and devastating, with the shark's serrated teeth causing massive internal injuries that proved immediately fatal. Priya Singh and the 3 children witnessed the entire attack from their position on the beach. Their afternoon of family fun transformed into a nightmare that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The children's screams echoed across the empty beach as they watched their father disappear beneath the waves. The water around the attack site stained red with blood. The isolation that had made the location attractive for a private family retreat now became a deadly disadvantage. The nearest emergency services were in Albany, over an hour's drive away on rough roads. Priya Singh had no means of summoning immediate help, and the remote location meant that other beachgoers who might have assisted were non-existent. Local volunteer lifesavers from the Albany Sea Rescue Squadron received the emergency call nearly 2 hours after the attack. The delay was due to the time required for Priya Singh to reach a location with mobile phone coverage, as the remote beach offered no cellular service. By the time rescue personnel arrived, the shark had departed, and Michael Singh's body had been recovered from the shallows by the receding tide. The aftermath of the attack revealed the shark's massive size and power. Bite marks on Michael Singh's body showed tooth impressions consistent with a great white shark over 15 feet long, one of the largest ever documented in Western Australian waters. The attack had been so violent that the shark had bitten completely through his torso, causing injuries that would have been fatal within minutes, regardless of medical intervention. The incident prompted immediate beach closures throughout the Albany region and sparked renewed debate about shark management policies in Western Australia. Marine authorities deployed shark nets and increased patrol activities, though the effectiveness of such measures in protecting isolated beaches remained questionable. The attack highlighted the risks of swimming in remote locations where sharks were known to be present. The Singh children required extensive psychological counseling to cope with the trauma of witnessing their father's death. The family eventually relocated to a different city, unable to remain in an area where memories of the attack were constantly reinforced by proximity to the ocean. Priya Singh became an advocate for shark attack prevention, working with marine authorities to develop better warning systems for remote beaches. The local fishing community faced criticism for their fish cleaning practices, though many argued that such activities had been traditional for generations without previous incidents. Marine biologists pointed out that shark attacks remain statistically rare, but emphasized that certain behaviors and locations could significantly increase risk factors. The combination of fish cleaning activities and shallow water swimming had created conditions that made the attack more likely. The incident contributed to ongoing research into great white shark behavior and distribution patterns along the Western Australian coast. Scientists used the attack data to understand better how human activities might influence shark behavior, and to develop more effective safety protocols for beachgoers in remote areas where emergency response times were limited. The Mediterranean coast of southern Spain had become home to one of Europe's most controversial marine entertainment facilities by 2016. Located near the resort town of Benidorm Aquatica, Marina occupied a sprawling complex that housed dolphins, sea lions, and 3 captive orcas in what park management claimed were state-of-the-art facilities designed to replicate natural ocean environments. The park had operated for over 2 decades, attracting millions of visitors annually while facing increasing criticism from animal rights organizations and marine biologists concerned about the psychological effects of captivity on highly intelligent marine mammals. Elena Ruiz joined Aquatica Marina's marine mammal training staff in 2014, bringing her extensive experience from similar facilities across Europe. At 29 years old, she had worked with captive orcas for over 8 years and was considered one of the most skilled trainers in the industry. Her expertise with Tajo, the park's oldest male orca, had developed gradually through daily interactions, feeding sessions, and behavioral training exercises designed to provide mental stimulation for the captive whale. The relationship between Ruiz and Tajo had always been complex, characterized by mutual respect and an underlying tension that experienced trainers recognized as inevitable when working with wild animals in captivity. Tajo had never shown outright aggression toward Ruiz, but he had displayed dominance behaviors and occasional reluctance to follow commands, suggesting his tolerance for human authority was limited. On the afternoon of September 8, 2016, Ruiz conducted a routine feeding session with a small audience of approximately 30 visitors. The session was scheduled for 3:00 p.m. during the park's quieter hours when fewer tourists were present. These smaller demonstrations allowed trainers to work more closely with the animals while providing educational content about orcas' natural behaviors and conservation needs. The feeding session was designed to be interactive. Ruiz stood on a platform that extended into the orca pool, allowing her to hand-feed fish directly to Tajo while explaining orca dietary requirements and hunting techniques to the audience. This type of close contact had been routine for years, and Tajo was generally cooperative and responsive to Ruiz's commands and signals. The weather conditions that day were typical for the region, with warm temperatures and calm winds creating pleasant conditions for visitors and staff. The orca pool's water temperature was maintained at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, optimal for the whale's comfort and health. Visibility in the pool was excellent, with advanced filtration systems ensuring clear water that allowed visitors to observe the animal's behavior underwater. Tajo's behavior during the early stages of the session appeared normal, with the massive orca responding appropriately to Ruiz's signals and accepting fish rewards as expected. However, marine mammal experts later noted that certain subtle signs of agitation were present, including increased tail slapping and what appeared to be displacement behaviors that suggested underlying stress or frustration. The attack occurred without warning, as Ruiz knelt on the platform's edge to offer fish directly to Tajo. The orca's massive head emerged from the water with explosive force, its jaws clamping down her left leg with crushing power. The audience's initial reaction was confused, with some visitors initially assuming the incident was part of the show's choreography. Tajo's behavior immediately after seizing Ruiz demonstrated the complex psychology of captive orcas. Rather than releasing her immediately, he pulled her into the pool. He began what marine mammal experts described as play behavior, holding her underwater for extended periods before allowing her to surface briefly. This pattern suggested that Tajo was not displaying predatory aggression, but rather was engaging in dominance behaviors that orcas typically display toward other whales. The emergency response protocols at Aquatica Marina had been developed specifically for such incidents, with staff trained to use various techniques to separate orcas from humans during aggressive encounters. Trainers immediately began using whistle commands, food rewards, and physical barriers to distract Tajo and encourage him to release Ruiz. The process required several minutes of coordinated effort from multiple staff members. Ruiz surfaced twice during the encounter, gasping for air and screaming for help before Tajo pulled her underwater again. Her survival depended entirely on the orca's restraint, as his massive size and strength made human resistance impossible. The incident demonstrated the impossibility of maintaining safety when working with animals capable of such devastating power. The successful separation of Ruiz from Tajo was accomplished through a combination of emergency protocols and the orca's apparent lack of lethal intent. Staff members used long poles to create physical barriers, while other trainers attempted to redirect Tajo's attention with food rewards. The process was complicated by the need to avoid actions that might further agitate the whale and escalate the dangerous situation. Emergency medical personnel were summoned immediately, and Ruiz was transported to a hospital within 20 minutes of the attack. Her injuries included multiple fractures to her left leg, deep lacerations from Tajo's teeth, and symptoms of near drowning from the repeated submersion. The medical team worked for over 6 hours to repair the damage, ultimately saving her leg, though permanent disability was expected. The incident prompted Aquatica Marina to suspend all orca programs immediately and triggered investigations by Spanish authorities and European Union agencies responsible for animal welfare oversight. The park faced intense scrutiny regarding its safety protocols, trainer preparation, and the psychological condition of its captive orcas. Ruiz's recovery proved challenging both physically and emotionally. The trauma of the attack, combined with the extensive injuries she had sustained, required months of rehabilitation and psychological counseling. She eventually returned to work in marine conservation, but never again worked directly with captive marine mammals, instead focusing on education and research programs. The incident reignited debates about the ethics of keeping orcas in captivity for entertainment purposes. Marine biologists and animal behaviorists pointed to the attack as evidence of the psychological stress that captivity imposed on highly intelligent marine mammals. The European Parliament subsequently passed legislation restricting the acquisition of new orcas for entertainment facilities. Marine mammal experts closely monitored Tajo's behavior following the incident, noting increased signs of stress and agitation. The whale's appetite decreased significantly, and he showed reduced interest in training activities. Some experts argued that Tajo's actions demonstrated the frustration and psychological damage that captivity inflicted on wild animals never meant to be confined. The long-term implications of the attack extended beyond the immediate participants to influence broader discussions about human-animal interactions in entertainment settings. The incident provided stark evidence of the risks inherent in maintaining close contact with apex predators, regardless of training or safety protocols. The waters surrounding Gansby, South Africa, had earned recognition as one of the world's premier great white shark research locations by 2017. Located approximately 160 kilometers southeast of Cape Town, this small fishing village sat at the heart of what marine biologists called Shark Alley, where the world's largest great white sharks congregated year-round. The area's unique combination of seal colonies, kelp forests, and deep-water channels created perfect conditions for apex predator research, but also presented significant risks for human ocean users. Lucas Meyer, a 35-year-old adventure kayaker from Germany, had traveled to South Africa to experience the country's renowned marine environment. Meyer was an experienced sea kayaker with over 15 years of paddling experience in various international locations. His expertise with sea conditions and marine wildlife had made him somewhat complacent about potential dangers. The morning of July 15, 2017, offered exceptional conditions for sea kayaking, with calm winds, moderate swells, and excellent visibility. Meyer had launched his bright yellow 17-foot sea touring kayak from Kleinby Harbor before dawn, intending to paddle toward Dyer Island to observe the seal colonies and potentially encounter migrating whales. 2 miles offshore, Meyer encountered a pod of common dolphins that approached his kayak with apparent curiosity and swam alongside him for nearly 30 minutes. Marine biologists later theorized that this dolphin encounter may have inadvertently attracted the great white shark that attacked. Great whites follow dolphin pods, hoping to scavenge kills or hunt separated individuals. Great white sharks rely heavily on visual identification when selecting prey, particularly near the surface. From below, a kayak's elongated shape and the paddler's movements can closely resemble a seal or other marine mammal, especially when the kayak's approach angle obscures distinguishing features. The attack occurred with devastating power and speed. The shark, estimated at over 14 feet in length, launched itself from the depths with such force that it partially breached the surface upon impact. The collision created a tremendous crash that could be heard across the water, followed immediately by fiberglass cracking under the shark's massive jaws. Meyer was thrown from his kayak as the shark's attack split the hull nearly in half. The predator's serrated teeth had completely punctured through the fiberglass construction, creating a jagged wound extending over 4 feet along the vessel's length. The force launched Meyer several feet through the air before he crashed back into the ocean. A second assault followed the shark's initial attack as Meyer struggled among the wreckage. This time, the predator made contact with Meyer himself, its teeth grazing his left thigh and creating deep lacerations that began bleeding profusely. The injury, while serious, was relatively minor compared to what could have occurred with a full grip. Meyer's survival depended on his experience with emergencies and his ability to remain calm. Rather than thrashing, which might have triggered additional attacks, he focused on clinging to the largest remaining section of his kayak while assessing his injuries and rescue options. The shark's behavior following the attacks suggested confusion rather than continued predatory interest. After circling the wreckage twice, the massive predator disappeared into deeper waters. Marine experts explained that great whites typically investigate potential prey through biting, then retreat to assess suitability. The kayak's fiberglass composition and Meyer's human scent likely discouraged further attacks. Rescue came when the fishing vessel Sweeter Cruise, operated by local fisherman Hendrik van der Merwe, spotted the debris field approximately 45 minutes after the attack. Van der Merwe had been checking crayfish traps when he noticed the bright yellow kayak wreckage and immediately altered course to investigate. The rescue operation was complicated by Meyer's injuries and the sinking wreckage. Van der Merwe carefully maneuvered his boat while his crew prepared emergency medical supplies. They successfully pulled Meyer from the water and immediately applied pressure bandages to his thigh wounds. The crew radioed for emergency medical assistance, and a rescue helicopter met them halfway back to shore. Meyer was airlifted to a hospital, where surgeons treated his lacerations with over 60 stitches. No major arteries or bones were affected despite significant tissue damage and blood loss. Meyer recovered fully within 3 months, though the experience profoundly changed his perspective on ocean kayaking. He now advocates for enhanced safety protocols in shark-populated waters and supports marine conservation efforts. The incident became a valuable case study for researchers studying human-shark interactions, contributing to improved safety guidelines for ocean recreation in South African waters. The attack reinforced Gansbai's reputation as a world-class marine research destination and a reminder of the ocean's inherent dangers.